Coming up on Over a Barrel, I have finally riled up Patrick. Ladies and gentlemen, Patrick is now riled.
Right,
this show is going to be good.
What street?
I can hardly
5100 Cairo Road. Would that be a
Find out what has Patrick so riled up on Over a Barrel. It starts right now. Well, welcome to the program on Over a Barrel. I'm Matt McClain alongside Patrick DeHaan. Thank you so much for joining us. We are moving almost, believe it or not, Patrick, to a full year worth of doing podcasts for Over a Barrel. And I know that I've had a lot of fun. And even at times in debating you, I've had fun. It's very entertaining to me. How are you doing?
I'm great. You know, Matt, you talk about all this a year. Wow. Cannot believe this is episode number, I think, 47. I don't think anyone's really keeping track anymore. It's either you listen or you don't. But, you know, it's been fun to update people on what's going to happen. And as we get into the holidays, you know, I don't know about you, but, you know, my wallet's a little bit lighter from filling up the tank, but I'm a little heavier for what I ate during Thanksgiving. How was your Thanksgiving?
I ate lightly on purpose because I am trying to go down in size, not up. And yes, I know I picked the bad time of the year, but there's never a good time of the year. I just want to point it out.
I mean, that's true. It's always one thing or another.
There's always an excuse, whether it's Easter, July 4th, no matter Memorial Day, let's have a grill out. Let's make oodles and gobs of potato salad. I mean, it doesn't matter. There's always an excuse to eat badly.
It's never an easy decision. And, you know, I think that segues perfectly into, I think, what OPEC is facing, by the way, right now.
Absolutely.
If we're jumping into it, is OPEC's got a tough decision, which, you know, we spoke about a little bit, but for those that don't know, OPEC, and I think I mentioned about the Lions losing, kind of maybe interesting that I picked the Lions losing, the 8-2 Lions losing, or said that they were going to, and then they lose to the Packers in typical Lion fashion. But yeah, here we are, and OPEC is trying to figure out what to do. Oil prices, Matt, have declined for 5 straight weeks, and I know, you know, we've been seeing a lot more stations below that $3 a gallon mark, but that could end. That could end here really soon if OPEC comes out. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that OPEC and its Russia-led allies are considering new production cuts. As much of 1 million barrels a day, delegates said, despite tensions in oil markets. Now, however, there have been some African producers that have been resisting. Nigeria and Angola, which, by the way, the biggest Africa producers, have not been excited about potentially having to cut their quotas. So, you know, we did say there was dissension among the ranks. That's continued. And there's even been rumors, Matt, that this delayed meeting could be further delayed as probably Saudi Arabia is working on everyone, because the Saudis...
You think you're arm twisting, trying to keep them in line, or what?
Yeah, you know, well, the Saudis, Matt, you know, they've got, as we've talked about, what that like mile-long city in the middle of nowhere, right, in the desert, they've got a lot of projects that they're spending some good coin on, and the Saudis have a lot at stake here. If the price of oil continues to fall, Matt, and by the way, it's at $78 a barrel. It was up $1.50 today. So if the Saudis cannot get the price of oil up, Matt, they are going to have difficulty in the months ahead.
That is interesting.
And things that make you go,
Now, by difficulty, that difficulty for one might be good news for the consumer as far as gas prices?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it certainly could. If there is not a solid agreement, or if the market senses that this is just something to placate us in terms of a decision, if it's something that they're just going to say and they don't follow through, then, you know, then the market may view it skeptically and gas prices may decline. But I think for now, Matt, worth mentioning that as oil prices have gone up here the last couple of days, the national average could be getting rather close to potentially a short-term bottom. Now, it's largely contingent on what OPEC does. So OPEC's got a little bit of power on where we go, how low we go, how long we go. But for now, we did see prices, gas prices, that is, moving up in Florida. We've seen that actually in a couple states compared to a week ago. And I know you were talking about off the air here. You're talking about prices went up just in time for the holiday, but you know,
you and I, and listen, let's just be full disclosure. We actually started recording late because you and I were having this discussion. We have been friends for so many years.
Let's get into it.
Yes, right. So you and I have been friends for so many years, and I know sometimes I know exactly how to push your buttons, and I don't even mean to. But no, and you know how to push the buttons on my end as well. But
you're a button pusher.
Well, I mean, yes. Let's go ahead and admit it. So yes,
in
I
this
am.
podcast, and when it comes to gas prices,
in this podcast. I was driving around, quote unquote, town on the day before Thanksgiving.
You're trying to find some evidence to push buttons.
And I think it's working, but you're in disagreement. That's cool. So I was driving around, quote unquote, town, and
quote unquote town.
Yeah, driving around town, and I was looking at gas stations. I'm like, I've got to drive through 3 states tomorrow to make it to, over the river and through the woods to so-and-so's house we go.
I mean, literally over the river and through the woods.
Yeah, the Mississippi and the Ohio River, and to make my way from basically Kentucky in toward Missouri, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm looking, I'm like, oh, gas price is $2.79 a gallon. I see one for $2.81, blah, blah, blah. I'll just, first thing Thanksgiving morning, I'll just fill up and not worry about it today. So then I go to the gas station, first thing Thanksgiving morning, at like 7 a.m, and it's $2.99. And I'm looking around and thinking, well, that's odd. And so I'm like, well, I mean, I need gas. I'll just go ahead and...
I've got a box of Kleenex here I'd like to hand you. $2.99. No, but
so
it's interesting.
It's 20 cents more. Suddenly, the same station that was $2.79 like less than 12 hours before was suddenly 20 cents higher. Then I'm like, okay, well, that's just a weird thing. So I start driving, right? Because and every gas station that I had been by the previous day was also at $2.99. And I'm going, well, what's wrong with this picture? Why suddenly
cycle
on a Thanksgiving day? Cycling on Thanksgiving Day.
Now, I don't know exactly the times you compared. It is insanely rare to see
Wednesday,
stations going up on Thanksgiving.
Afternoon, just before dark.
It could have happened Wednesday night. So here's the way gas stations look at things. By the way, I
still think they were trying to profit on a holiday.
You know what? If you told me the station, I could go back and look at the time that we got a report of a higher price at that station.
Well,
but secondly, it's not. I struggle to explain this, Matt, because it is. I mean, thankfully we've got the benefit of time, but in like a 60-second, or 2-minute media interview, it's really hard to explain that. Now, stations don't want to have zero margin in their price when they're going to have an onslaught of Thanksgiving travelers, right? Nor do they want to make $1 a gallon. That's egregious. That's gouging. But stations want to make sure. So last week, Matt, the wholesale price of gasoline did jump up, which is also why I said we may be near a short-term bottom.
So it did go up.
The wholesale price did go up.
Okay.
Typically, those adjustments would not happen on a holiday because most of the pricing analysts, very similar job to kind of what I do, but a lot of these larger chains, anyone that has more than probably 15 or 20 stores could have a in-house pricing analyst that's looking at what they're paying, and they will say, okay, we need to raise our price. But most of those pricing analysts, Matt, just like you and I, they don't want to be in an office on Thanksgiving. So usually stations do not empower their cashiers to make pricing changes themselves. Sometimes the station managers may look at prices around them on Thanksgiving. That's pretty rare though, Matt, with all the distractions, the turkey on the table, the family around them. I'm pretty sure most stations are not thinking, I got to check what the gas prices are on Thanksgiving, because I sure as heck, okay, now I'm a nerd, maybe I did. But most station owners are not, they're not necessarily looking as closely on Thanksgiving.
Admitting it is the first part of solving the problem. Admitting it though is a good step, Patrick. I just want you to
I just admitted it. So I'm step one. What's step two? Bringing the prices down instead of raising them. But yeah, so most of those adjustments probably would have happened Wednesday. That's when those analysts want to make sure that they're out ahead, because most Americans left Wednesday, as evidenced by our gasoline demand data. Most people left their house Wednesday. So that's why I'm thinking that is a rare time to see a station making an adjustment would be on a Thanksgiving holiday or a Christmas or a New Year's. Well, New Year's not so much.
I confirmed at least a dozen stations with my own two eyes.
Yeah,
from
and
12
I just wonder
hours
if those
prior.
I wonder if those stations went up after you went through on Wednesday afternoon. They easily could have.
I mean,
right?
I suppose late
All
in the day,
You know
Wednesday afternoon.
I'm doing this. Where was this? Paducah?
This town, yes, it was Paducah. Yes, you are correct.
All right, so
I'm rubbing my hands together. I have finally riled up Patrick. Ladies and gentlemen, Patrick is now riled. Oh, this show is going to be good. I can hardly wait.
All right, so what street? 5100 Cairo Road. Would that be a station that you'd be familiar with?
On Cairo Road, yes.
Cairo.
That's an exit 3
and
in
Charter
Paducah.
Oak Drive.
Yes, that is also.
Would that be one of the stations? I don't want to say the station name.
I did not drive through that area.
But
on
wait,
that
that
Wednesday
station's
afternoon.
back at 271.
That's correct. Some of them fell.
Okay, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to
But I
quickly
did not
type
drive
in.
that street in full disclosure on Wednesday,
Okay, so-
late Wednesday afternoon.
Sure. So can you give me? I guess you could just say the number of the address.
Central town in the southern portions of town and the southeastern portions of town. If you're looking at a map, that's the area that I was driving at Wednesday late afternoon, approaching dark / sunset, which admittedly happens at like 2 p.m. these days. But that's a whole other story. But yeah, it was somewhere around 4:30 or so.
Okay, I want to zoom out here.
I've riled Pat. Ladies and gentlemen, I need music. This is entertaining to me. I've riled Patrick, and this is kind of fun to me.
I do like to figure this out because I want to figure out.
I just find it to be interesting. I just thought, well, why all of a sudden on a Thanksgiving holiday did the stations just suddenly jolt back up? Some of them came right back down a few days later.
Well, and yeah, that's the other thing with price cycling. That's really fascinating. Okay, so you said the south side of town. What? Give me an area.
Let's say the Farley.
Hedron?
Yeah.
Farley.
Farley, Hendron.
Okay, so
the Lone Oak area.
Okay, I do see.
This is entertaining to me.
I by the way, I do see one of the brands you mentioned off air on John L. Per Year Drive near Husband Road.
Yes.
All right, so I'm gonna pull this one up. It is at $2.99.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to quickly type that into my system and see if I can see these pricing movements. Stations, recent prices.
Let's see what you find.
I want to know if the station went up on Thanksgiving. That would be a surprise. Okay, so...
I mean, it may have happened late at night on Wednesday or even like 30 seconds after I drove by the stations on Wednesday. I don't know, but I'm just saying. I found it very interesting.
When was Thanksgiving? That was the 23rd. Okay, there it is. Okay, so...
Cost me 20 more cents per gallon, Patrick.
But that station... Okay. Are you sure? Because I'm showing Matt on... I can confirm that station went up on Monday. From 288 to 309. They went up to 309 on Monday.
Okay. All right.
And they came down to 299 on the 21st, which was Tuesday.
Okay.
And they went down to 287 on the 22nd. And at 6 o'clock, they went back up to 299.
It sounds like they're throwing darts at a wall to figure out the price. That's
So they had been at 309 the week of Thanksgiving. They lowered to 299. Then I see 287, and then at 6 o'clock, one of our longtime users on November 22nd reported them at 299. Although it looks like we got a confirmation that they were still at 287. Then later that night, so they may have gone up, Matt, just for a couple moments.
Yeah, isn't that special? Right at the time,
They could have tried to go up, and if nobody else went up, they probably quickly went down.
Yeah.
So, by the way, that's what a lot of stations will do. They'll throw up a different price, and they'll see if it sticks at other stations. And if it does, they will hold that price. And if it doesn't, if their competition doesn't in like an hour go up, then they'll go right back down.
I see one on the map for $2.68 a gallon.
Is that in the Paducah area?
It is. It's a current
Interesting.
one. Yeah, I do see that. Yeah, I just throwing that out there. I just found it to be interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, these are really interesting, and I mean, to your point, it could have happened, but typically the larger operators, like I mentioned, just like you and I, gas station owner, if they own one or two stations, they're probably not looking on Thanksgiving Day. They'll probably look the day before or even the Monday before, because to your point, they don't want to be in a position where they're only making 2 or 3 cents ahead of the holiday, right? Because what do you want to do when there's a lot of Americans, travelers coming through? Do you want to be stuck making 2 cents? Or would you rather be making more of the normal margin, which is about 20 cents, Matt? So,
I mean, that's fair.
And the reason that they may have adjusted is also because the price of oil did jump up late last week on the possibility that OPEC would be announcing a production cut, as I mentioned. So some of this is about the timing. You know,
which my timing was obviously quite poor because it cost me 20 more cents per gallon. It wasn't
poor. It's just, you know, the fact of the matter is the station did want to make sure that they were going to be able to pay their expenses through the holiday.
Maybe that's why they did it.
The push behind it was not them. The push behind them was the market going up and forcing their hand.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
The catalyst is the market, but yeah, they don't want to be stuck in a position where they're not making.
Doggone you talking me off the edge. I tell you.
But and then they went right back down, which is fascinating. So a lot of the time, you know, that's what stations will try. Just like airlines, Matt. If it doesn't stick, if the competition doesn't go up, you go back down.
So can I ask a very sincere question that I think impacts every single person who is listening and every single American citizen?
The doctor is in.
Okay. I'm looking at what I call on the Gas Buddy site the heat map. I don't know what you call it.
Yes.
Is that actually what it's called?
Yep.
Well, see, there we go. And let's say I just kind of zoomed out a little bit and I'm looking across multiple states and I'm looking right now in portions of Illinois. Let me and if you're looking at it right now, you're going to see
yellow.
You're going to see a brighter yellow around certain little spots. Go to like the
Carbondale.
southern. Exactly.
Yep.
Now, my understanding is, you know, there are regions where your gas stations get their fuel from. So like little ports or spots or whatever, pipelines, wherever the fuel is coming in, there's like a hub for the fuel tanker trucks to go in and get the gas and deliver it out. Is that a fairly accurate statement?
I know exactly where you're going with this.
Why are the price fluctuations set in such a large disparity that certain spots are substantially higher than their surrounding areas? And I recognize there might be some tax issues depending upon which state laws.
It's exactly what you think it is.
What is it?
Well, and by the way, folks,
tell me what I'm thinking. It's probably true.
By the way, folks, we're talking about comparing prices to an area that's about 17 miles away. That's what I'm doing right now, Matt. And it does stick out because I look at Carbondale, by the way, in Illinois, which is where I am. Carbondale, Illinois, prices are $3.29, $3.39. And then you go straight down Illinois 13, basically. I think that's Illinois 13. If you go over 17 miles east, almost basically directly east, there's Marion, Illinois. Mm-hmm. Isn't that Marion, Illinois?
That is, yeah. SIU Carbondale, that whole little area there. That's a metropolitan area in southern Illinois.
So Carbondale, $3.39, and you go over to Marion, Matt, and I'm seeing $2.99, $2.94. Yeah, and that gasoline's coming from the same area. In fact, I'm looking at a station at $3.39 in Marion, and literally 0.2 of a mile away, there's a station at $2.94. So this is a question, actually, I had from a reporter today. There's communities 17 miles apart. How can the price be $2.94 in one of them and $3.39 in another? Mm-hmm. And the difference there is because in the recent, like last couple of weeks, well, maybe even the last week, the wholesale price of gasoline's come down a lot. That's allowed stations to lower their prices, but it did swing up a bit in the last couple of days. So those stations at $2.94, everyone's getting their gas at the same generally from the same suppliers, but the station at $3.39 and the station at $2.94, those stations within Marion themselves are probably paying a similar price. It might be 10 cents a gallon higher or lower, but that doesn't address the 45 cent disparity. So
no, because if you look at California, for example, it's a sea of yellow and it's pretty consistent from the north to the south to the central parts.
So these stations are probably paying a very similar price. One of them is just making 40 cents more a gallon than the other. The other's probably not making really much at all, Matt. And the other's probably making 45 cents a gallon.
Because I'm telling you, if you scurriage through portions of Illinois, Missouri, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, you see these little what I call hot spots that it's like, why? Yeah. But if you move into other states, take, for example, California, I'm struggling to find any different disparity in price. It's just all bright yellow. There's a couple up toward Redding, California. But
you got to zoom in, but they're there. But to your point in Carbondale, I only see 2, 4, 6 stations in Carbondale that are, well, if I go on the fringe, maybe 7 stations in Carbondale, including one that's $3.89 a gallon. That doesn't seem right. But
no, that would probably be accurate.
It doesn't seem like there's as many stations in Carbondale as there are in Marion. And I do notice, Matt, by the way, if you go over to Marion, the proximity to I-57.
In the interstate, yeah. I was just getting ready to say that.
The interstate stations are going to be a little bit more competitive, especially in Marion, Matt, because they're going to try and get people off I-57.
I see.
Right. So there is a little bit of a difference in agenda, but the difference you point out between Carbondale at 339 and Marion, these stations at 294, is competition. The stations in Carbondale maybe don't have to compete, right? They're not competing for I-57. They're too far away. Nobody in their right mind is going to get off I-57 and drive 12 miles to fill their tank.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So a lot of that is station discretion. A lot of that 40 cents a gallon is station discretion. But when prices are swinging wildly, a lot less of it is station discretion. So there's a varying amount of discretion that stations have, right? Some days they're barely breaking even and they're following the wholesale price. But other times, and by the way, stations like falling prices just as much or more than you and I, because it opens up the door for them to pass along the savings faster if they want or slower at their discretion. So they're empowered. And by the way, people don't price shop enough still, Matt. You and I do. But
Yes.
that's why every station is a different price. And by the way, to add another layer on the whole ugly cake of differences is there's personalized pricing too. Some of the stations that may be charging more, they could have a loyalty program and people want to earn those points. And people become less price sensitive when they think they're getting something of value. So, you know, if you pull into a gas station, Matt, and it's 30 cents more, but you earn points, it has a very interesting impact on the psyche of those people.
Or they do a reward discount price per gallon.
Right. So you're still probably paying more though, right? Those
No,
stations
that's what
are
I'm saying.
45 cents a gallon off, but Matt, that's the inherent value. That's why stations have loyalty programs, is because people feel they're valuable. And when people think something is valuable, sometimes they're willing to pay more.
Yeah. I mean, like Nashville metropolitan area in Tennessee, for example, I am seeing in the southern area, you know, near Brentwood, places that are more developed, more affluent, however you wish to want to call it. They seem to be in that hotter, brighter yellow than the rest of Nashville, for example. And for those who have not been to Nashville lately, it has become quite the quote unquote it city. I mean, it is.
By the way, Matt, did you read that British Airways is going to bring a larger plane? From the sounds of it, they're going to bring a 777 from London to Nashville. By the way, it's the only international stop I think Nashville has. But it was interesting because British Airways is going to your point, it's become such a tourist destination that British is going to upscale to a larger plane.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised by that. There are 38 or 42 high rises under construction or planned for development in downtown alone right now. It in the past 10 to 15 years I live an hour and 45 minutes away from it, and I don't even recognize it.
And it's only been like 5 or 7 years. I mean, everything's changed. There's all these huge residential high rises. So
yeah, it's a very different city. But that's my point is like you've got these hot spots.
Yeah. You always have to shop around, especially if you're on a road trip, Matt, for Thanksgiving. You know, we underscored it last week, pack the Gas Buddy app, because you're not going to go into the gas station and say, hey, I don't want to pay this price. They'll laugh you out the door. What you can do is instead of exiting in the highway in one stop, you go 4 miles down the road that, you know, you're going to be on the highway anyway. You might as well just wait a couple more exits because this exists. That's the whole, you know, Gas Buddy's got such value because I can say, this is a good deal, or man, there's other prices that are cheaper. Maybe I'll keep looking.
Yeah. You know, I'm sure there's a whole bunch of reasons on why it's a shame that I can't just pop in my Gas Buddy app and say, hey, I want to go to Tampa, Florida and drive, and it'll tell me where the cheapest gas prices are along the way. I wish that would, that could be fun.
Your wish is my command.
I was, see how I set that up?
It's done. So Matt, go in your Gas Buddy app.
Mm-hmm.
Go in your Gas Buddy app and click Find Gas.
Okay.
So you'll see all the stations at the top. There's a bar that says current location.
Mm-hmm.
Click that, and you'll see the first option is to add destination.
Oh.
So why don't you type in Tampa, Florida as your destination?
Yes.
And now, since I'm in Chicago, I see a beautiful route from Chicago to Tampa, 17 hours, 20 minutes, 1,180 miles. I'm going to select that as my route. And look at that. The Quick Trip that's down the road, downwind for me in Chicago, just outside Lansing, popped up for $2.67 a gallon. That's my Gas Buddy price. And all along my route, Matt, now I'm looking at 309 at a Pilot in Hebron, Indiana. And it's loading prices the entire way. Lafayette, Indiana, $294. So basically, Matt, if you zoom out to the whole route, yeah, look at that. $259 in Kentucky, $261 in Nashville. It's showing me all the stations along my route.
So I can plan accordingly. Now that's cool.
Like
that is a
literally,
feature I did not know existed.
Yeah. And literally, like if I zoom out to Atlanta, oh, look, the cost, oh my goodness, a marathon for $224. Where's that?
I don't know.
That is in Perry, Georgia. I could pay oh my goodness, my favorite. Oh, hold on.
We've sent him down a rabbit hole. This is very entertaining for me.
You have, because I was going to look at, there's the Buc-ee's. The Buc-ee's in Fort Valley, Georgia. I've spoken about them. Is $2.22 a gallon after my Gas Buddy discount. But anyway, Matt, so anyone can do this in the app. All you have to do is click Find Gas. And when you get the list of stations, you'll see on the top of the list, you'll see current location, right? It's finding gas for your current location. Click the Add Destination button. Tell it where you're going, Tampa, Florida. It'll show you the route, or it'll offer you a few different routes. Then when you select that route, it'll show you all the gas stations within about a mile of the highway exit. In fact, if you look, Matt, it's showing me that a Murphy Express in Georgia adds a half a mile to my trip, which isn't bad because it's a 222 station.
No, that's not bad. A half a mile you can probably, without having like a large amount of hills, see that station easily from the interstate. A half a mile is not that bad at all.
Exactly. So that's a feature that does exist in the Gas Buddy app. It's just one of those things that we've tried to hide from you, but now we've exposed it. So don't tell anyone else. It'll be our little secret.
Okay.
But it's probably the easiest way if you're crossing a state line, if you're growing. I don't even use that often enough. Although the other thing is, if people don't know, you can also favorite your certain stations. So Matt, I have a lot of favorites. My favorite stations between here and West Michigan. And so I can very quickly, I see the Costco in Chicago is at $3.45, and then I zoom out. I often stop at the Quick Trip in Lansing, which is new, $2.67. The Speedway in Michigan City is $2.56, and in South Haven, Michigan, it's $2.59. So you can do it one of two ways. You can either tell us your route, or if you favorite the station, you can very quickly find all of your favorites as a list. So hashtag travel hacks in the Gas Buddy app.
Yes, I am loving this idea. Let's do it. Now all we need is the Over a Barrel mobile, and we need to take a little trip, and it'll be fun.
Is that going to be a pump on wheels?
Oh, I hope so.
We pull up to the pump and we're like, we're here to pump you up.
You would.
With cheap gas.
That could be fun. I'm just saying, the Over a Barrel mobile.
Insert references about eating too many tacos from a certain fast food chain.
I've got no comment on that. That's we'll leave that be. But
anyway,
yes,
it's just a perfect lesson for, as you mentioned, we cannot, as a consumer, you're not going to be able to go into a station and say, why is your price high? You just set it lower. No, just skip that. Just go find the cheapest station along your route in the Gas Buddy app. But
speak with your feet rather than your voice.
Speak with your wallet. Speak with your wallet, right? So, kind of going back to what we had mentioned, Matt, prices have inched up a bit in some areas of the country, which, I'm hopeful some of the areas that have popped up that should start to recede again. And by the way, most of the country's declined from a week ago. I am looking at you, Florida. You're up 12.5 cents from last week. New Mexico, you're up 6 cents from a week ago. West Virginia up 3 cents. Alabama and Tennessee up 2 cents. South Carolina, Iowa, and Rhode Island, you're up fractions of a penny. But Matt, I think, as I mentioned, we could be close to testing a bottom, kind of contingent on if OPEC takes action, with one caveat. There's one region of the country, Matt, that's definitely not ready to go up yet. And I feel like it's going to be music to their ears. The West Coast, I think you still have plenty of declines coming. And that's the good news. If you're in California,
I hope so. I'm looking. That's what I was just telling
you.
you.
It's still at $4.91 a gallon. But the beautiful part, Matt, is there's a couple stations now, the Costco's, the Sam's Clubs in Southern California. They're within 20 cents of $3.99. The Costco in Signal Hill, $4.19. Costco in Lakewood in LA, $4.19. Sam's Club in Long Beach, $4.18. So they're getting really close.
Yeah, I feel bad for them. You poor folks paying that kind of a price. I feel bad.
Matt, what the
I'm
temperature
complaining
here in
about a
Chicago
20
is
cent
like
difference.
32 degrees and the sunset happens at like 3:30. It's hard to feel bad for somebody that's got palm trees and orange sunsets every night. I'm sorry,
know.
Californians. I do love anyone who uses the Gas Buddy app, but they that's the cost of living in a beautiful area. Although, by the way, your competition, Florida, prices are just a little bit less, averaging $314. There is a Chevron in Florida City charging $259.
It just sounds wonderful.
What state do you want palm trees in? Like what state's better, California or Florida? I feel like Florida traffic is definitely starting to rival California.
Certain parts of it, absolutely. The central part of Florida, no question whatsoever. The Tampa Bay, the Orlampa, as it's called, or the Orlando and Tampa Bay metro areas are kind of merging together. That is a problem. And then you've got the Miami, Fort Lauderdale area, but everything else isn't so bad.
Miami, yeah. Well, as long as they start building trains and flying to, that's the one thing that's always amazed me, by the way, about Florida is that, unless you're flying Silver Airways, it's really hard to get around Florida to fly from Tampa to Orlando. Well, first of all, that's such a short flight. So my apologies, flying from Tampa to like Miami. That's like a 4 or 5 hour drive. And I think there's only one airline. And a lot of the airlines, like if you fly Delta, you have to go all the way up to Atlanta. Miami to Atlanta, Atlanta to Tampa. That doesn't seem really smart. That's like the people that drive 15 miles out of their way to fill their tank up. Unless it's like $1 a gallon less, or you're filling up a tanker, by the way. I am not an advocate of driving too far out of your way. I'm an advocate of being smart and finding a station nearby.
This is very true. Yeah, you've got a very good point.
But, Matt, we'll be watching very carefully what OPEC does. Because OPEC, the power's in their hands right now. And why, people are always befuddled. Why OPEC is still relevant? We're talking about David versus Goliath. The U.S. is the world's largest oil producer. We produce 13.2 million barrels a day. So we are the world's largest producer. By the way, that's up 2 million barrels from 2 years ago. Actually, from the start of 2021. But when you put 13 of the world's largest oil producers together,
that becomes
it's still hard to compete,
Yeah.
It's kind of like watching Lord of the Rings, right? And it's the good against the evil. And OPEC, OPEC's kind of evil. At least the Saudis are trying to drive oil prices up.
Yeah, that's the concern. So where do we look at from now, like the first few weeks of December? Are you thinking prices are going to kind of be where we are right now? Am I going to suddenly wake up and I'm 20 cents more per gallon like I did last week? What are we looking at here?
Yeah, that could happen, Matt.
Man.
Let me caveat that. I think Florida, as I mentioned, they just price cycled. So prices in Florida just went up. So the stations in Florida that just went up are going to start inching back down. But price cycling also happens in areas of the Great Lakes like Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky. It's possible that those 4 states, Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, could price cycle this week. And that could mean a jump of 20 to 40 cents at individual stations. That could be enough to send the national average back up a little bit. But even if OPEC does have a surprise announcement, Matt, I don't think we're going to get blown out of the water. I don't think gas prices are going to get blown out of the water. I think we'll be in this ballpark of low prices for the next couple of weeks. So
what's the cheapest price that you're
bit.
finding in the country? What's the cheapest price that you're seeing?
Do you really want to know?
I do. I want to be depressed for a moment.
You want to be you're a glutton for punishment. It was Thanksgiving. Well, right now, I think some of the cheapest prices. Oh, by the way, if you're in Georgia, pause the program and go fill your tank up because prices are about to go up in Georgia because their gas tax holiday is expiring. It's very unique how this is happening, but Governor Kemp called a special session and he acted with emergency authority to waive the state's gasoline tax. But the law is written that the next time that there's a session, that emergency gasoline tax then has to be voted on and approved. And I'm guessing that they're just going to allow it to expire. So if you're in Georgia, you could pay 30 cents less today, or if you wait till tomorrow, you're probably going to pay like 30 cents more. But Matt, back to your point, the cheapest station I can find right now is in Texas. Look, it's Buc-ee's. Buc-ee's at $2.29 in Ennis, Texas.
And the most expensive price that you're finding, probably
It's
the gas
not- it's
stations
not
by
hard to-
Orlando.
Yeah, well, no, it's we've gotten a lot of social media hits from. There's a mobile station in Southern California that's typically $7.79. I don't see it reported recently, but what I do see is that a station, a Chevron in Vidal Junction, is at $7.79, and it's kind of an isolated area out in the middle of the border between Arizona and California.
That sounds awful.
It is awful.
I mean, that just sounds awful.
But you're a captive audience. If you're finding yourself out in the middle of the road, you're probably going to willingly pay $7.79. Hopefully, you're not buying a full tank at that, because oh gosh,
I sure wouldn't.
Now I have to do the arithmetic. A full tank on my Mazda CX-5, which takes about 15 gallons, a full tank would be $117.
Yeah, I'm trying to do the math at $2.79 a gallon, which is what I'm able to get gas for right where I'm sitting.
Well,
versus
let's do the difference.
Like that's
$117 for a tank versus $41.85.
That's some serious. That's wow. I cannot wrap my mind around that. That hurts. I'm really surprised that places like Hawaii or Alaska are not creating some price competition, not $7.
The highest price in Hawaii right now, by the way, Matt, that I'm showing is $5.57. So it's like leagues lower than California's highest price.
That's so weird to me. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is, I suppose. And Alaska doesn't, I mean, am I looking at Alaska price? That can't be right.
Well, no, there are some very rural areas in Alaska, but we generally don't get those reported to us very often.
Understood.
So
I'm looking at like Anchorage, and I'm seeing prices below $4.
Oh yeah. Alaska's state average is below $4.
Yeah.
The Costco in Fairbanks is $3.49. So now up in Cordova, kind of a rural area, Shoreside Petroleum is at $5.69. But again, that's an area that I believe has to be served by a special barge that brings that gasoline in.
Then that makes sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, it makes a little more sense, but there's probably not a whole lot of competition. But, as we wrap up, Matt, let's focus on the good. And that's that, I think prices in most areas should continue to mellow out in the next week. But we're going to be keeping a very, very close eye out on OPEC. By the way, Matt, I'm going to take a little vacation, but I'm going to pack you with me. So we're going to do this again overseas.
Overseas. Okay. What suitcase are you putting me in? This will be fun.
Well, there may be some Christmas markets involved. Let's leave that as a surprise.
Okay.
But for now, why don't you remind everyone of our socials?
I knew you were going to ask that. That scares me now. At Gas Buddy Guy, obviously for Patrick. Over a Barrel Matt for me. Those are on X, formerly known as Twitter. I think we're still supposed to say that. I don't know. And then, of course, also by email. You can even go to the Gas Buddy page itself, gasbuddy.com. Just scroll at the bottom. And right there, Over a Barrel Podcast. It's really easy to get a hold of us. And the email, Patrick, you're going to have to help me on that because I don't have it right in front of me.
Podcast at gasbuddy.com. Nice and simple.
Yeah, that's why I can't remember it, because it's so simple. There we go. Hey, you know what? We will talk again next week. And I guess everybody have yourselves a great, great rest of the weekend. And keep it right here for Over a Barrel.
We'll see you here soon.